That nagging feeling you get around someone, that sense that something just isn't right, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Carl Jung, one of history's greatest psychologists, spent decades studying this phenomenon. And what he discovered will make you rethink many of the relationships in your life. Jung realized that there's a type of person who has mastered the art of psychological manipulation. They don't use physical force, they don't use violence, they use something far more dangerous. They use your own mind against you, and the scariest part, you don't even realize it's happening. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 5 signs that Jung identified, signs that reveal when someone is manipulating you. And if you recognize 3 or more of these signs in someone close to you, pay very close attention, because what comes next could save you from years of psychological distress. Before we start, I need to tell you something important. This isn't about paranoia. It's not about distrusting everyone you meet. It's about protection. It's about recognizing patterns that science has proven to exist. Jung didn't invent this. He observed, studied, and documented the real behaviors of real people. And here's the truth. No one tells you. You're probably being manipulated right now, and you don't even realize it, because true manipulators don't look like villains. They don't have sinister faces. In fact, in the beginning, they seem amazing, generous, attentive, almost too perfect. And that's where the danger lies. Carl Jung taught us something fundamental about human nature. He talked about the shadow, the part of ourselves that we hide from others, and often from ourselves. Healthy people work on their shadow. They acknowledge their difficult parts and try to evolve. But manipulators do the opposite. They use the shadow as a weapon. They project it onto others. They make you feel guilty for things they themselves do. And you know what the problem is? Society has taught you to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to not be judgmental. And manipulators know this. They count on your kindness, your empathy, your fear of being unfair. Jung realized that our subconscious picks up on things that the conscious mind ignores. That unease you feel around someone, it's not all in your head. It's your subconscious screaming, warning you, protecting you. But you've been trained your whole life to ignore that voice, to rationalize, to think you're overreacting, and that's exactly what manipulators want. For you to doubt yourself, to ignore the signs, to think the problem is you. So let's get to the 5 signs and pay attention, because each one of them will make you think of someone. And when we get to the 5th sign, you'll understand exactly why you felt so confused. First sign, the excessive idealization phase. Jung studied a concept he called the persona, the social mask we all wear. It's normal to have a persona. It's part of life in society. The problem is when the persona is too fake, when it's a calculated construct designed to deceive you. And that's what manipulators do in the beginning. They create a perfect persona. They study you. They figure out what you need, what you value, and they transform themselves into exactly that. At the beginning of a relationship with a manipulator, you feel amazing, understood, valued. It seems like you've finally found someone who truly gets you. They agree with everything you say. They validate your every feeling. They make you feel special in a way that no one ever has. But here's what Jung discovered. When someone idealizes you too much, too quickly, something is wrong. Because healthy people recognize nuances, they see flaws and qualities. They take time to build a genuine connection. Manipulators don't. They skip that phase. In weeks, sometimes days, you're already the most important person in the world to them. You're perfect. You have everything in common. It's destiny, it's a soulmate connection, and you feel so good about it that you ignore the signs, that little voice that says it's too fast, too intense, too perfect. Jung warned, when something seems too good to be true, it probably isn't true. It's a psychological trap, an emotional bait, and you're biting the hook without realizing it. Because get this, after this idealization phase comes something very different. But before we get there, you're already emotionally invested, you've already created bonds, you've already opened your heart, and it's exactly at that moment that the real manipulation begins. Here's a concrete example. I knew someone who went through this. I'll call her Ashley. Ashley met a guy who seemed perfect. In the first few dates, he remembered every detail she mentioned. He sent her sweet texts every day. He said he had never felt this way before, that she was different from all the others. Ashley felt special, valued, and when her girlfriends warned her that it was moving too fast, she defended him. She said they didn't understand, that it was different, that it was real. 3 months later, Ashley was completely isolated, without friends, emotionally dependent, and wondering how she got to that point. But I'll tell you that part in a bit, because first you need to understand the second sign. Second sign, the gradual and imperceptible isolation. Jung deeply studied how people influence each other, and he discovered that manipulators have a very specific strategy. They don't isolate you all at once. That would be too obvious. They do something much more intelligent. They convince you to isolate yourself voluntarily. How? Through subtle criticisms disguised as concern. After the idealization phase, small comments begin, almost imperceptible, about the people around you. That girlfriend who always supported you? The manipulator will say something like, "I've noticed she seems jealous of you. Every time you share good news, she changes the subject. I'm just warning you because I care about you." And you, who trusts this person, start to see your friend in a different light. You start to notice things you didn't notice before. And little by little, you distance yourself. Your brother, who's always been protective, the manipulator will plant, "I don't think your family values you. They don't see how amazing you are. Lucky you have me now." Your co-worker who always defended you? Be careful with him. I think he's using you to climb the corporate ladder. And so, one person at a time, your circle of protection shrinks. And you don't realize it, because each separation seemed like your decision, your perception, your conscious choice. But Jung taught us something fundamental. When someone systematically distances you from all the people who love you, it's not coincidence, it's strategy. It's calculated isolation. Because manipulators know that it's easier to control someone who has no support network. And there's a crucial detail that most people don't realize. Manipulators always have a plausible excuse. They always seem like they're protecting you, helping you see the truth, saving you from fake people. But the truth is the opposite. They're isolating you, weakening you, preparing you for the next phase of the manipulation. And this phase is even more dangerous. Going back to Emily's story, remember I said that in 3 months she was isolated? That was exactly this process. First, he started questioning her friends, said he noticed they drank too much, that they were a negative influence, that she deserved healthier friendships. Emily, believing that he cared, started refusing invitations, pulling away. Then it was her family. He said her parents were too critical, that they didn't really support her, that they were stuck in old patterns. And Emily, who always had a complicated relationship with her parents, thought he was right, that finally someone understood her. She reduced her visits, stopped calling as much. In just a few months, Emily only had him. And when she realized it, it was already too late. Because then came the third red flag, and this one is the most destructive of all. Third red flag, gaslighting. the manipulation of your reality. Carl Jung spoke extensively about the importance of our perception of reality. He understood that mental health depends on trusting our senses, our memory, our ability to interpret the world. And manipulators attack exactly that. They distort your reality. They make you doubt your own sanity. This has a name, gaslighting, and it's one of the cruelest forms of psychological abuse. It works like this. Manipulators deny things that clearly happened, contradict your memory with such confidence that you start to doubt yourself. They distort conversations, rewrite history, and make you feel crazy for questioning. Example, you have a conversation where the person promises something. The next day, they deny having promised it. Say you misunderstood, that you're making things up, that you need to pay more attention, or worse, they do something that hurts you. You confront them, and they completely flip the script. They say you're being too sensitive, dramatic, that you're seeing a problem where there isn't one, that the problem is you, not them. Carl Jung realized that this creates what he called dissociation. You start to no longer trust your own perception, question your memory, your judgment, your sanity, and you know what's the most dangerous? Gaslighting works best on intelligent people, because intelligent people are capable of questioning themselves, of considering that they might be wrong. And manipulators exploit exactly that intellectual humility. They convince you that you are the problem, that your sensitivity is exaggerated, that your memory is flawed, that your perception is distorted. And after months of this, you don't trust yourself anymore. You depend on their validation to know what is real, and that's exactly where they want you. Confused, insecure, dependent. Emily experienced this intensely. She remembers once they planned dinner for 8 p.m. She arrived on time, waited an hour. When he arrived, he said they had agreed on 9 p.m., that she hadn't paid attention. And he said it with such certainty that Emily started to doubt her own memory. It happened again and again. Small things. He'd say one thing and then deny having said it, change plans and blame her for not remembering correctly. And every time Emily questioned, he'd sigh as if he were dealing with a difficult child. Until one day, Emily realized she didn't trust herself anymore. She checked messages obsessively to have proof of the conversations, mentally recorded every word. And even then, she doubted. Because he had an incredible ability to distort everything. And Carl Jung explained why this works so well. Because we, as human beings, need external validation. We need our experience to be confirmed by others. And when the closest person constantly denies our reality, we enter a deep psychological crisis. But hold on, because I haven't yet shown you what's most important. The red flags that come now are the ones that really give you the power to react. They show you not only that you're being manipulated, but how to reverse it. Before continuing, I need to explain something that Carl Jung discovered. Manipulators operate from a damaged psychological structure, a failed integration between persona and shadow. They never developed an authentic self. They created such an elaborate mask that not even they know what's real anymore. And you can't fix that. You can't love someone until they heal. Because change requires that the person recognize the problem. And manipulators rarely recognize it. They do the opposite. They project. Carl Jung talked a lot about projection. It's when you place on another characteristics that are actually yours. Manipulators lie and accuse you of lying, cheat and accuse you of cheating, manipulate and accuse you of manipulation, because it's easier than looking at their own shadow. Carl Jung taught that the path to individuation involves facing our shadow, recognizing our difficult parts, integrating, not denying, but manipulators completely deny the shadow and project it onto others. This puts you in an impossible position. Every time you try to have an honest conversation about their behavior, it turns to you, your defects, your mistakes, your flaws. Emily told me about the time she tried to confront her partner about him flirting with another woman right in front of her. She gathered her courage, waited for a calm moment, and said that it had hurt her. You know what happened? He completely flipped the conversation, said that she was obsessed with other women, that she had jealousy issues, that she needed to go to therapy to deal with her insecurity. And at the end of the conversation, Emily was apologizing. Apologizing for feeling bad about something he did. And this is the trademark of gaslighting combined with projection. You confront a real behavior and leave the conversation feeling like you are the problem, that you need to work harder on yourself, that you aren't good enough. Carl Jung warned his patients, when you try to discuss something legitimate and systematically the conversation turns to your defects, you're not in a healthy relationship. You're in a dynamic of manipulation, and there's a simple test that Carl Jung suggested. After a difficult conversation with someone, do you feel clearer or more confused, stronger or weaker, more confident or more insecure? Healthy conversations, even when difficult, bring clarity. It may hurt to hear honest feedback, but you feel you've grown, that you've understood something new, that the relationship has evolved. Conversations with manipulators have the opposite effect. You leave more confused than you entered, more insecure, more questioning your own sanity, because the goal was never to solve the problem. It was to leave you so disoriented that you give up questioning. Many people ask, how do I know it's not me who's the problem? And the answer lies in the pattern. Once is a misunderstanding, twice is a coincidence. But when you feel mental fog every time you try to resolve something with a specific person, that's systematic psychological manipulation. Carl Jung talked about trusting your subconscious, that nagging feeling you get around someone that you can't quite name. It's your subconscious detecting inconsistencies, that what the person says doesn't match what they do, that the social mask doesn't quite fit. Healthy people have congruence, manipulators don't. There's a deep dissonance, and your subconscious picks up on it even before your conscious mind understands. That's why you get that weird feeling in your stomach. It's not paranoia, it's protection. It's your alarm system working. Jung would say, betraying your own intuition is the greatest betrayal you can commit against yourself. So observe. Realize that the feeling exists. It's telling you something important. Now, let's get to the fourth sign. And this one is particularly insidious because it attacks something fundamental: your autonomy, your independence, your ability to exist outside their orbit. Fourth sign, punishment for independence. Jung talked about the process of individuation, the path to becoming who we really are, to developing an authentic self. And this process requires space. It requires that we can think our own thoughts, feel our own feelings, make our own decisions. Manipulators know this, and they do everything to prevent your individuation, because an individualized person cannot be controlled. A person who knows themselves doesn't fall for psychological manipulation easily, so they punish, subtly, but effectively. Every time you demonstrate independence, every time you do something without asking permission, every time you show that you exist outside the relationship with them, this can look like many things. You go out with friends, and when you come home, the person is cold, distant, and when you ask what's wrong, they say everything's fine. But it clearly isn't. You feel the punishment in the air, the withdrawal of affection, the silent treatment, or you share an achievement, something you accomplished on your own, and instead of celebrating, the person minimizes it, changes the subject, or worse, points out some flaw in what you achieved. Jung would explain this as an attempt to keep you in a state of psychological dependence. Because if you feel bad every time you demonstrate autonomy, you eventually stop demonstrating it. You start asking permission, checking before doing anything, molding your entire life around this person's moods and reactions. And the most painful part, you don't even realize it's happening. You just know that somehow you've stopped doing things you enjoyed, stopped seeing people who mattered, stopped pursuing dreams you had. And you can't even explain exactly how you got to this point. With Ashley, this was brutal. Every time she mentioned wanting to take a class, her partner would get weird. He wouldn't forbid it, but suddenly he'd get sick, or sad, or need her for something urgent. And Ashley, being a good-hearted person, would postpone the class. Postpone it again, until she stopped mentioning it altogether. When she wanted to go for a walk alone, he wouldn't say no. But he'd make a face like he was abandoned, sigh, comment that he was feeling lonely lately, and Ashley, feeling guilty, would stay, choose to stay, or so she believed. But it wasn't a choice. It was sophisticated emotional manipulation. It was punishment disguised as need. It was control dressed up as vulnerability. And Carl Jung warned about this in his writings. He said that when someone uses their own fragility as a weapon to control others, it's not real vulnerability. It's manipulation. Real vulnerability brings you closer to people in a healthy way. Emotional manipulation traps you in a prison of perpetual guilt, and there's a specific pattern you can observe. Whenever you try to grow, the person gets sick, needs you, has a crisis. It's not a coincidence. It's psychological sabotage. It's a way of ensuring you stay small, that you don't evolve beyond what they can control. Because manipulators have a deep fear of abandonment. But instead of working through it in a healthy way, they trap people through guilt, through making you feel responsible for their emotional well-being, through convincing you that leaving them, even for a few hours, is cruelty. And that brings me to the fifth and final sign, the most destructive, the one that finally opens your eyes if the others haven't. Fifth sign. The cycle of devaluation and recovery. In the beginning, remember, you were idealized, perfect, amazing. But after the other signs, something changes, and it changes drastically. The devaluation phase begins, and when that starts, the confusion reaches unbearable levels. Jung studied the archetype of what he called the destructive cycle, patterns that repeat compulsively. And manipulators operate on a very specific cycle. Idealization, devaluation, discard, and sometimes recovery. To start all over again, the devaluation starts subtly. Small comments about your appearance. You were beautiful. Now you should take better care of yourself. Criticisms about how you talk, how you think, how you are. Comparisons with other people who are better than you in some way. And with each criticism, you try to change, try to be better, try to win back that wonderful person who loved you in the beginning. But no matter how much you change, it's never enough. Because the goal isn't for you to improve. The goal is for you to feel inferior, insecure, grateful that they're still with you despite you being so problematic. Jung would explain this as a massive projection of their shadow onto you. All the parts they hate in themselves, they now see in you. And they attack, criticize, despise, not because you are those things, but because they can't cope with those things inside themselves. And then, when you're at your limit, when you're almost giving up, almost leaving, something magical happens. They go back to being that person from the beginning, caring, attentive, apologizing, saying they're going to change, that you're special, that they don't know what came over them. And you believe it, because you want to believe it. Because you fell in love with that first version and desperately want it to be real, so you forgive. Give them another chance. And for a while, it's good again. It's like it was in the beginning, until it's not. And the cycle restarts. Devaluation, near discard, recovery. And each cycle leaves you weaker, more confused, more dependent, more lost from who you were before. Ashley lived through 6 complete cycles before she managed to leave. 6 times she almost left, and 6 times he transformed back into the wonderful person, with promises, with tears, with declarations of love, and each time she went back, she lost another piece of herself, more of her confidence, more of her strength, more than your ability to recognize what was real. Carl Jung would say, that's not love. True love strengthens you. It helps you grow. It encourages you to be more yourself, not less. What Emily experienced was trauma bonding. It's when you become attached to the very person who hurts you, because the good moments, rare and intense, create a chemical dependency in the brain. And here's the harsh truth. If you've recognized these 5 red flags in someone, that person is not going to change, not with enough love, not with enough patience, not with just one more chance. Because change requires that the person do the internal work that Carl Jung described, face their shadow, integrate the fragmented parts, develop an authentic self. And the vast majority of manipulators don't do that work, not because they can't, but because they don't want to, because it's painful, because it requires admitting things about themselves that they've spent their entire lives denying. Pausing for a moment. If you've watched this far, you've received information that took me years of studying Carl Jung to understand. Information that can save you from years of psychological distress, from relationships that destroy your mental health, from people who use your kindness against you. This content has a cost, time researching, revealing truths that many people prefer not to hear, risking criticism for being direct, for not sugarcoating reality, but you deserve the truth. Real tools for protection, knowledge that empowers, not just entertains. That's why Super Thanks exists. The golden heart down there. When you click it, you're not just supporting financially. You're telling YouTube that this content matters. That information that protects is worth more than content that only distracts. You're saying, keep revealing what others are afraid to say. Keep bringing Carl Jung in a way that truly protects. Keep creating content that saves. Become part of a community, people who choose knowledge over ignorance, protection over naivety. Understand that defending yourself psychologically is not negative. It's wise. Any amount helps. $5, $10, because it's not about the monetary value. It's a declaration that this type of information needs to continue existing, to reach more people, to save more people from destructive relationships. Now let's get to what really matters. You've identified the red flags. Now what? How do you protect yourself? How do you get out? How do you recover yourself? Carl Jung taught that the first step to healing is awareness. You're seeing, recognizing patterns, validating your intuition. Second step, establish psychological boundaries. Carl Jung talked about knowing where you end and the other person begins. Manipulators invade that boundary. They make you feel responsible for their emotions. You need to return that responsibility with firmness. You can have empathy without taking on someone else's emotional baggage. You can love without losing yourself. Third step, reconnect with your unconscious, with that inner voice that you've been trained to ignore. Pay attention to the feelings in your body, discomfort in your stomach, tension in your shoulders, the urge to flee. These are signs of deep wisdom. Your unconscious sees what the conscious mind rationalizes. Learn to listen to it. Fourth step, seek external validation. to break the isolation. Talk to someone you trust. Tell them what's happening. If people who love you are worried, pay attention. From the outside, they see what you from the inside can no longer see. Fifth step, the most important. Getting out is not failure. It's not giving up. It's self-preservation. It's choosing your mental health. It's respecting the individuation process that Carl Jung considered essential. And if you're wondering, but what if I'm wrong? What if the person really changes? What if I regret it? Carl Jung would answer, you're not wrong. Your unconscious doesn't lie. And if the person really changes, it will be the result of years of deep therapy, not weeks of promises. And you can't wait, because waiting means sacrificing your own individuation, your own health, your own life. Emily got out on the 7th cycle. After believing in the change 6 times, she said, the real change I saw was in me, when I finally chose my sanity over the possibility of him becoming who he promised. 3 months later, Emily had a feeling she hadn't felt in years, peace, true peace, not the peace of when he was being good, but the peace of not being in constant alert, of not checking his mood all the time, of not walking on eggshells. She said, I forgot what it's like to exist without fear, without confusion, without questioning my perception every moment. Now I know. I'll never trade my peace for the promise of love again. Real love doesn't cost you your sanity. It doesn't cost you your identity. It doesn't cost you your ability to trust yourself. Real love strengthens, clarifies. It helps you be more you, not less. If what you're experiencing leaves you more confused, weaker, more insecure, that's not love. It's manipulation. You deserve relationships that nurture you, that respect you. Recapping the 5 red flags. First, excessive idealization in the beginning, fast, intense, too perfect. Be suspicious of anyone who puts you on a pedestal before they know you. Second, gradual isolation, cutting you off from the people who protect you, always with plausible excuses. Third, gaslighting, denying your reality, twisting conversations, making you doubt your own memory. Fourth, punishment for independence. Whenever you demonstrate autonomy, there's a negative reaction, conditioning you to ask permission to exist. Fifth, cycle of devaluation and hoovering, treating you worse and worse, and when you almost leave, going back to being wonderful, an eternal cycle of hope and disappointment. If you recognize 3 or more of these in someone close to you, you know what you need to do. And if you still have doubts, ask your unconscious, that feeling in your stomach when you're near that person, that relief when you're away, that voice that warns you, but you ignore. Carl Jung deeply trusted the unconscious, and you should too, because it's trying to save you. It's showing you what the conscious mind rationalizes. It's protecting you in the way it can. How many of these red flags did you recognize in someone? Comment just the number, from 1 to 5. You're not alone. Thousands watching recognize the same patterns, validate the same intuitions ignored for too long. Which red flag did you ignore the most? Which did you rationalize? Your story could be what another person needs to hear to trust their own perception. If you want a video about how to get out of manipulative relationships, regain self-confidence after gaslighting, or recognize healthy people, comment which topic interests you. This channel gives you real tools. Knowledge that protects. Carl Jung's wisdom applied to life. Psychological protection in the real world. Trusting your intuition is not paranoia. It's wisdom. Establishing boundaries is not cruelty. It's mental health. Choosing your peace is not selfishness. It's survival. Getting out of destructive relationships is not failure. It's courage. Carl Jung dedicated his life to understanding the human psyche. One of the most important things he taught us is this: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But now, you've made it conscious. You've seen the patterns, recognized the signs, validated your intuition. Now, it's not fate, it's choice. You know which choice protects you, which choice honors you, which choice brings you back to yourself. Choose yourself, always. You deserve to be someone you trust, someone you respect, someone you protect. It doesn't matter what promises are made. It doesn't matter if there are temporary changes. Choose yourself, your sanity, your peace, your individuation. That is true self-love. Deep respect for your process of becoming whole. When you choose yourself, you stop attracting manipulators because you've become your own validator, your own protector. This is the freedom that Carl Jung promised, complete individuation. Where you trust your perception, where you honor your truth, walk away from here more conscious, more protected. Never again betray that gut feeling you get around someone, because it's right. It's not all in your head. It's your subconscious screaming. Your unconscious is protecting you, and you deserve to listen. You deserve to trust it. You deserve to act on it. Until the next video, protect yourself, value yourself. Always choose you.